Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode on the Changemakers podcast. Today's episode features Mr. Seb Alex. I really love this guy. I met him recently at the Asia Farm Animal Day in Kuala Lumpur, which is a animal advocacy summit. So there I met him and we recorded this podcast together. Seb Alex is an amazing animal rights activist. His focus is on social media content creation, and he gives lectures on animal ethics in universities and schools. He is also the founder of the Middle East Vegan Society, which is a non-profit that focuses on the growth of veganism in the Middle East and North Africa using educational and corporate outreach. He also has a free ebook online called When Animal Rights and Logic Meet that's available in 20 languages on his website. So he's all about animal ethics, animal rights, and in this episode, we talk about all things animal rights, basically, and animal advocacy methods, his animal activism. We discuss his personal vegan journey, so how he made the connection between the animal products in his diet and the animals. And I thought it was like the best vegan journey story I've heard as of yet, so I'm excited for you guys to hear it as well. I really loved talking to Seb. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I enjoyed getting to know him better, and I hope you guys enjoyed the conversation as well. So without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with the best Seb Alex. I'm super excited to introduce our special guest today, Mr. Seb Alex.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, so Seb, he is a advocate for animal ethics. He has a presence on social media, and he also gives lectures. Is it at colleges, universities? Or?
Universities and schools,
yeah.
But mostly universities.
Yes, so he gives university lectures. And actually, you're probably the first animal advocate I saw on social media. When I started out, I started my interest in veganism, and you had this one video of yours go viral about you were giving a lecture at a school, and it was about the dairy industry, and you had while you were explaining what happens about the insemination, about the calf, you had the footage show up as well, so people could see it.
I think that was at the British school in the Netherlands.
Yeah, it was in the Netherlands. Yeah. So that video was so powerful, I feel like, and that was probably the first video that I reposted on my page as well, and it got a lot of views as well, and I was such a great video. I'm glad it's getting views and it's being shown, because it's people were actually I'm getting a bit off topic, but people were actually some friends of mine would reply to that post and be like, whoa, that's so crazy about dairy industry, and I was finally it's being shared, what's happening. You were my first kind of introduction towards veganism, animal ethics on social media. So
I'm happy to know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, so I'm glad to hear it. Thanks for sharing.
So to further introduce you, could you maybe share about what it is that you do, and why you do it, and just a little introduction.
So I'm born and raised in Lebanon, and I now, as you said, I give lectures on animal rights and ethics, the philosophy of animal rights mostly. I'm also the founder of the Middle East Vegan Society. We started around 2 years ago, so we raised awareness about animal rights and veganism, plant-based eating in the Middle East, because there's a lot of amazing organizations doing amazing work all around the world, but it's definitely something missing in the Middle East. It happens to be kind of a blind spot of the movement. And since I am from there, I thought, well, if someone has to start, then might as well start instead of waiting for someone else. Our goal is, of course, to use education to raise awareness about this topic. Also create content in Arabic about this topic, which happens to be one of the top 5 most spoken languages in the world. And there's close to zero content on animal rights in Arabic as an ethical stance. We also work with corporate outreach, so we reach out to businesses, organizations, government institutions to help them make it easier for consumers to choose plant-based options. So while we educate the public, we also work on making it easier for the public to eat plant-based food. And we do some dietary guidelines work, which means we work with ministries, Ministry of Health usually, to make the dietary guidelines inclusive of vegan diets, plant-based diets, to mention that you don't have to drink dairy, or you don't have to eat meat, or these are some alternatives that you can consume. Wow. Yeah, there's a bunch of other small projects we have as well. So really excited about that.
So you started that 2 years ago. When did you start your animal advocacy journey?
I think it's been 8 or 9 years now. With animal rights activism, I started with mostly street activism. That led to reading more about communication, effective communication, and then giving workshops on effective communication and street activism, and then sometimes organizing vigils, which is waiting outside slaughterhouses when the trucks arrive and document what's happening to raise awareness about these animals. And then eventually I got a few invitations to give lectures in schools and universities, and I found a lot of impact there, and I thought 3 hours or 4 hours spent in university is much more impactful than spent on the street, at least in my personal experience and case. So I started to heavily concentrate on that instead.
Which the vigils, was that in Lebanon?
No, vigils I've done in mostly European countries. Spain, Germany, Ireland, UK, Poland, Netherlands,
powerful.
Portugal,
So you've actually seen it up close. I think the vigils is probably the most heartbreaking.
A lot of people don't realize. I mean, the first time I ever saw a pig was outside a slaughterhouse. It's weird because I used to eat some like products that come from pigs being killed, but never paid attention to the individuals. I think like first time I was really close to a cow was also outside a slaughterhouse. I don't know, it's just it hits people in a different way when they see a footage. So at the time I was living in Spain, so in Barcelona we'd do the vigils. My friends from Barcelona would see the footage of the slaughterhouses of the animals that are killed in Barcelona, so probably the ones that they're gonna consume, and because of that personal link, it affects them more than if it's just like a random video or photo of a cow. So so that helps create the connection for them, because it's like, oh yeah, this slaughterhouse is 20 minutes from my house, I'm probably gonna buy this animal now.
So on that topic, since you know a lot about advocacy methods, and like you're sharing as well that you went into the communication side of it as well, so could you share a bit about what you've learned about effective animal advocacy methods?
I mean, I think what happens when you become vegan and you realize what's happening to other animals, you become emotionally charged because you see the videos, you see the photos, so obviously it affects you because you care about what's happening. And then if somebody starts arguing against, it's very normal that we react in a negative way, because you think like, why are you even trying to find arguments? Like, what are you trying to argue for? And what we tend to forget is how we used to think before we were vegan ourselves. And so I try to always remind myself and others, like, before you react in an angry way, ask yourself, would you have asked the same question? You know, I know for a fact.
Wait, what do you mean, would you have asked the same question?
So, for example, before I was vegan, I once met a doctor who was vegan, and I told him, oh, where'd you get your protein from?
That's actually pretty funny.
To a doctor. And he just laughed and he was like, don't worry, all the protein that you need, you can get it in plants. So
that's such a funny anecdote.
The fact that I was one of those non-vegans.
I mean, we were all one of those.
It's curiosity. I wasn't sure because I was vegetarian for 8 years before I learned about veganism. And that was the first time I talked to a vegan. So I was like, oh, this is that thing, you know, like he's doing that thing called veganism. I used to think it was a dietary requirement because of some medical condition. I didn't know it's an ethical stance.
To be honest, I didn't realize. My brother went vegan before me, and I was just like, why are you vegan? Like, I just didn't get it. I was like, why does he have to be vegan? What's wrong? Like, I didn't understand why to restrict certain products from our diet. If that's the way our diet is, then why would we restrict anything? And I didn't understand at all the ethical implications of it. And I actually remember I don't remember much of my non-vegan cognitive dissonance. I don't really remember much, but I do remember one instance where we had eggs in the house, and my brother was like, oh, baby chicks die because you eat eggs. And I was just like, that's not true. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, stop talking.
Yeah.
Like, that's not true. That's what was in my head. But and it's so crazy to look back on that and realize, like, he was right.
And I think reminding ourselves of these moments help us be more patient with those who are hearing about it for the first time. So I try my best to remind myself of that, but also remind myself that it kind of is normal to react in a negative way when you first hear about animal rights and veganism, because most people believe in the logic of animal rights, they're just not aware of it. So when they're exposed with the idea that they are causing unnecessary harm, they react in a negative way because they don't like the idea of them being that kind of person.
Which is actually a positive thing.
Exactly. Yeah. It's you don't want them not to react.
Right.
It's like you want them to realize, oh, I'm doing something that's bad, and they don't like it. And unfortunately, they react in a negative way towards us. But that's actually kind of a good sign, in my opinion, because it means they don't want to be that kind of person. They're just trying to find excuses for it. So now you got to work on the excuses.
That's a good way to look at it. And then probably the people that say that they don't care, those are probably the people that we shouldn't even try to like talk to them even more, because they're probably we're probably talking to a like
waste of time and waste of energy.
So kind of realizing, okay, who's actually asking questions about it, or who's actually interested, and who is just being a bit stupid and saying like, oh, like I would just kill the animal myself, like saying that, but like probably if they were put in this situation,
it doesn't change anything. Like I used to go hunting before I was vegetarian or vegan. So like when someone says I hunt my own meat, and I was like, first of all, it's not your own meat, it's the meat of the animal you killed. Second of all, what does that change about anything? You pulled the trigger, so what? I've also pulled the trigger. There's no difference between pulling the trigger yourself or paying someone else to stab the animal in the neck. It's both the same thing.
But I feel like people don't realize that they're the one pulling the trigger.
That's why we shouldn't use that argument.
Really?
Because it's a weak argument. What if someone doesn't mind pulling the trigger?
But I think most people, like you said, most people have that like that animal rights in them, like they agree with the ethics of it.
I think it's what they don't realize is the fact that animal rights as a philosophy is nothing but an extension of human rights. So the idea of human rights is that we are not the same, we are all different, but the differences are not morally relevant differences. Literally the same philosophy applies to animal rights. We're not the same as other animals. They're not equal to us, like in any way, like emotional intelligence or IQ or whatever. I mean, they can be more or less, doesn't matter, because these are morally irrelevant differences. So if the differences between humans are morally irrelevant, and therefore we all have the same rights, and the differences between us and other animals are irrelevant, then logically speaking, they should also have basic moral rights. Unless if someone can name a morally relevant difference, which there aren't any.
Yeah, I mean, that in itself, that whole line is so powerful, what you just said. Like, that is so true. And I think that's what the animal advocacy is all about, is for us humans to recognize non-human animals in the same as human rights. Actually, my brother always said that if he were to once have like a stand, like Earthing Ed, of like Debate a Vegan, he would have, do you think animals deserve rights, as the question to ask people, because I think that's the fundamental question to ask.
Exactly. It's literally the same logic. There's no difference.
Do you want to expand a bit about that, about the
I think it's very important to talk about this, because if you talk about animal rights as something new, people can feel that they have the right to go like, oh, I'm not interested in this. But if you introduce it as, oh, you actually already believe in this. Unless if someone says, oh, I don't believe in human rights. Then you shouldn't work on that person anyway.
Then they're just telling you that they're a bad person.
Exactly. It's like that you have bigger issues with that person than talking to them about animal rights right now. But it's much easier to have a conversation with someone by making them realize, oh, I'm not gonna try to make you believe in something new. I'm just gonna share with you the fact that what I'm talking about is something you actually already believe in. You just haven't thought about it. Fair enough. It doesn't mean it's your fault you haven't thought about it, but it's important to talk about it. So there is this famous question which is called the name the trait question. Like, name the trait that is true of other animals that, if true of humans, would justify treating the humans the same way. So what is it about other animals that they have that if we were to hypothetically copy paste on a human, suddenly would be okay to treat the human the same way? And people can start like naming traits. They say like, oh, like they're not as smart as us. Like, okay, let's take that trait, apply it to a human.
Yeah.
You meet someone who's not as smart as you, do have the right to exploit them, kill them, or use them against their will? Of course not. Therefore, that's not a morally relevant trait. Then you go back to the question, name the trait.
Yeah.
And so like people can name trait after trait after trait, and you realize that all the traits that they're gonna name that humans don't have, that animals do, are morally irrelevant traits. Like you can say, oh, they don't speak the same languages as us.
Yeah.
Okay, if you meet someone who doesn't speak your language, does that mean you can kill them? You meet someone who can't communicate, let's say, maybe because of cognitive disabilities. Does that mean this person doesn't deserve basic moral rights? Of course not. Well, therefore, that's not a morally relevant trait.
Yeah.
You can spend hours on this,
Yeah.
and you're either gonna accept the fact that other animals deserve basic moral rights, or you're gonna come up with a trait that justifies killing humans, which is gonna make you sound a bit psychotic.
Yeah.
And most people just decide, okay, I can't find the trait.
Yeah.
They are morally relevant beings, and we should give them basic moral rights.
Nice.
Yeah.
I feel like the last thing it boils down to then is their like taste and pleasure, and that is very easily debunked.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, the thing is that would be a reason, not a trait. So someone can say, oh, it's not about a trait. It's more
okay.
like I get pleasure out of it.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So if you meet someone and you know that by exploiting them you can get pleasure, does that justify? No. Okay, then that's not it. So.
Yeah. How did you learn about all these debunking? You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah. I mean, I watched a lot of like debates, but also like I've read a few philosophy books on animal rights.
Which one?
A very good one is Animal Rights and Human Wrongs by Tom Regan.
Okay.
He's one of the most influential animal rights philosophers, and he believes that they should have rights. A lot of people think that the most important animal rights philosopher is Peter Singer. Peter Singer doesn't believe animals have rights because he's a utilitarian, which is also why he's not vegan, which is something a lot of people don't know about him.
Yeah. I actually posted Peter Singer on my story, and then someone replied to my story saying Peter Singer's not vegan, and then I was like, oh, mind blown.
It's sad because he's considered the grandfather of the animal rights movement, but he doesn't even believe animals should have rights.
That's problematic.
Exactly. We should be sharing about Tom Regan, who made a very, very strong case for why animals deserve rights.
Nice.
He has actually a book called The Case for Animal Rights.
Okay.
It's a very difficult book to read because he wrote it for philosophers. So it's heavy. It takes time. And then he wrote a very similar one called Animal Rights and Human Wrongs that was made for like non-philosophers. And I really recommend a lot of people to read that. It's very powerful because you realize, I mean, based on all the things that we value, that gives us rights, we can make the conclusion that, well, animals also deserve rights. So
Wow, that's amazing for the movement to learn. I didn't know about this book. So.
Tom Regan has also there's amazing videos of him on YouTube. Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago, but very powerful speaker.
He left behind his legacy.
Very like respected philosopher that unfortunately we lost too soon.
And just going back to the beginning of your journey, so when did you actually turn vegan, and what helped turn you vegan?
I think next month it'll be 10 years that I'm vegan.
Congrats. Happy vegan anniversary.
Somehow
almost.
still alive. Somehow
still
got all the proteins.
Yeah, protein deficiency.
B12 is good. Protein is good. Iron is good.
Have you actually checked?
I just did a test
really?
in September. Yeah.
And?
Live and kicking.
No, but like B12 or calcium or anything that people worry about.
All of it was good. My vitamin D was a bit low.
Yeah. But
that's
natural.
Very common
Yeah,
nowadays.
people,
And it's very easily fixed. Just take supplements.
Yeah.
But other than that, everything is good.
And
my testosterone was high, which is very funny because a lot of like men go like, "Oh, your testosterone goes down. You're soy boy." And it's like I don't even know why it's high. It's like first thing I was like, I saw it, I was like, I can't believe this.
I know.
I wasn't even trying to get it high. Like B12, you should supplement. So I was like, yeah, of course it's good because I'm supplementing. I'm trying to stay healthy.
So can I ask, like, what is your diet like generally for these good levels?
I try my best to eat healthy.
Yeah.
Whole foods, plant-based.
But do you focus on getting the calcium? Do you focus on getting, or are you just eating?
No, I don't think that much because I eat healthy foods and a good variety,
Yeah.
I'm not worried about what I'm covering.
Yeah.
I don't remember when was the last time I thought, oh, I should eat something
Yeah.
that is high in iron.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, as long as you're eating a good variety, and I don't know, I think there's like this formula of like try to get 40 vegetables and fruits per week or something like that.
Who's gonna count them?
Yeah, exactly. I never counted, but I was like, I don't care. I'm getting enough calories. I'm eating healthy.
Yeah.
My weakness is deep fried food. I always struggle with that. And the more veganism grows, the more there are options of eating junk food. Like 10 years ago when I went vegan, I think I was at my healthiest because there was only whole foods, you know, cheap, basic foods like rice and beans and veggies. The grains, but now it's like you go to a vegan restaurant and it's like double chicken bacon burger with melted vegan cheese. And I'm like, oh, can I just have like a burrito with beans?
Yeah. But the reason I'm asking this is because a lot of people have that misconception that they have to have a very well balanced, not balanced, but well planned out diet where they have to think about getting all the nutrients. But it's actually, I've never had to think about that.
I think people should do an effort the first month
in the beginning.
Yeah. Because then it's just like a habit, you know. But I remember when I first went vegan, the first 2 days I only ate pasta, and then I was like, there must be other stuff. It's like 75,000 edible plants out there, and I'm just making pasta every day.
Well, pasta's good though.
Yeah, it is. But
yeah, your advice is great. Like
the first month or two, keep an eye on what you're eating.
So that you're substituting and not that you're substituting, and not just taking it out of the diet.
And I would say like once a year do blood tests just to be sure. But I would say that for everyone, not only vegans. Like it's not like suddenly you're gonna make sure, but it's like if you care about your health, do a test once a year. That's enough.
Nice. So what triggered you towards veganism?
I was vegetarian, and then I was wondering. I was in Abu Dhabi.
Was it the doctor who turned you vegan?
No, actually, it's very interesting because I forgot that I had met one, like the doctor.
The vegan doctor.
It was years later where I was like, oh wait, I remember that day this thing happened, and he was a 60-year-old doctor, by the way, and he was like exercising. Like we were sitting in a city, a friend and I, and he was like running up and down the stairs, and then when he sat down I was like, can I ask, like, why are you doing this? It was really intense exercise. It was in Armenia, in Yerevan, the capital city, and we were facing this massive mountain that used to be in historical Armenia called Ararat, and he said, I'm gonna climb Mount Ararat, and it's like more than 5,000 meter altitude, like one of the highest mountains in the world. And I said, I know it's taboo, but do you mind me asking how old you are? He said, I'm 60. And I was like, how are you so fit? He said, I'm a doctor. 4 years ago, I think he said, he was overweight and unhealthy. And he thought, how can I be a doctor and not be healthy? I have to inspire my patients. And so he became vegan and lost all the weight and became fit.
Wow.
And a month later, he sent me an email with the photos of him on the summit. And I still have the photos actually on my email. I found it recently.
Within 3 to 4 years, he completely
changed his life.
Beautiful.
And so I stayed vegetarian for some reason. I because we didn't talk about ethics. It was just like a quick conversation.
Yeah, good diet. Yeah.
And then I remember I was in Abu Dhabi and my sister went to the mall, and I was like, I'm tired of going to malls. I'll just stay home.
That happens.
And then I was bored, and I don't know how I was wondering, like, wait, why am I drinking breast milk? Like,
wait, really? That just came in your mind?
Yeah, like I was like, why am I drinking breast milk? Like, it doesn't add up. Like, I'm not a child, and I'm definitely not a cow. As far as I'm aware, breast milk is for babies, and the breast milk of a cow is for the calf.
Calves,
And I remember this thing called vegan, so I was like, oh, why don't vegans drink milk? And then I saw Earthlings, the documentary, so I watched Earthlings.
Wow.
And then I watched Gary Yourofsky's speech, and then another speech called 101 Reasons to Go Vegan.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
And I finished, and I was like, oh, man, do I gotta go vegan? I wasn't happy. I was like, but I knew I have to.
I wasn't happy.
I wasn't happy because I was like, oh man,
it's
like
a change. Yeah,
I gotta change again. I got used to vegetarianism. Now I have to cut out even more.
Right.
But it wasn't like, do I want to? It was more like, oh, now I have to, because if I wanna stand by anything I've said as a ethical vegetarian for
Yeah,
8
yeah.
years, I either have to act like I never came across this information, or actually change.
Wow.
And I couldn't bear the idea of acting like I don't know the information.
But that's a very good personal trait of yours.
Yeah, I mean,
You know what
yeah,
I mean?
I'm glad I acted that way.
Yeah,
But,
because
yeah.
you're realizing that you can't, like, you're in conflict with yourself if you don't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, interesting.
And then, yeah, I decided to go vegan against my will, I felt. But the next day, I remember I opened the fridge, I took lebne.
Yeah. Yeah.
I sat down, I started eating, and I was like, oh, wait, lebne is not vegan, I can't eat this.
Ah.
And then I put it back, and then for a moment, I like reconsidered it. And then it just took me like a few seconds where I thought, who's struggling more now? Like me, like I can grab anything else from the fridge, or the cow or future cows that are struggling for lebne or milk or dairy to be produced. And there's no question, like I'm not the victim. I can still eat. I have other options. I'm not starving.
Yeah.
And so yeah, ever since then I made the conscious decision to cut it all out and walk the talk.
That's the best vegan story I've ever heard.
Really?
Yeah, I'm serious. Because you've actually made that connection from like the first day, kind of, that you realized, and then you made the connection, and then it immediately goes towards the animals, which is just beautiful. Like that's.
I mean, I had seen Earthlings one day before, so it's you know, once you see what's happening to these animals, it's difficult not to think about it.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
That's really cool. I wish that was my story. My story is like I decided to try it for health. Because I cut out meat, and then I wanted to just cut out dairy, and I realized I was pretty lactose intolerant, I think, because it was really good for me to cut out dairy. But after I cut out the animal products, I actually did research on like the dairy industry and everything, and that's when I learned. So it's like it took me cutting it out to like be open towards getting that information towards me. But I wish that it like. I wonder why I hadn't seen that footage before. I really wonder, like, why did no one show this to me?
That's what I thought.
You
like,
know?
I'm so pissed at all the vegans I came across who didn't talk about the fact that they're vegan. Because obviously I'm not happy of what I've done to other animals. But I also didn't know better. So
Yeah.
if you're vegan, talk about it.
Yeah.
That's an order.
I know, it is a way to spread the message further.
Yeah.
Which is what we're all about, I guess, over here. Yeah. So my last question, or second to last question, is what are you currently working on, and what are your future goals? Like, what's next for you?
For now, I think maybe in a few months next year, I'll do lectures again. So I usually do all the lectures in like one period in like 2 or 3 months,
different
one
countries?
after the other. Yeah.
Nice.
So first I collect, like, let's say the invitations, and then I check what's the best way to do them all. And
Nice.
at Middle East Vegan Society, we are working on a project I'm very, very excited about. It's the Vegan Islam Initiative. It's a project that religious Muslim activists are working on. And they're all vegans for ethical reasons, and many of them like believe in veganism and animal rights because of the fact that they're religious Muslim. And it's basically a research into what animal rights is and what the religion says about this, about veganism and animal rights, and how not only is it possible to be vegan as a Muslim, but it's also like considered a good thing based on the scripture and the stories and everything. So I'm really excited about this because a lot of people have this misconception of what it means to be vegan and Muslim. Some people think that you're not allowed to, which is a complete misconception. And I think it's time that this misconception is taken out of the equation so that people can make like better decisions and decide to help other animals instead of harming them. And I think religion is probably the hardest angle to take on animal advocacy, vegan advocacy, because it's hard to argue with religion, but it's cool that you're actually getting people who know the religion really well. Of course. And I was very surprised. Even I didn't know how much the religion of Islam supports the idea of animal rights.
That's beautiful.
So I'm very happy that this resource is going to be there, because it's not like a weird interpretation.
Right.
It's actual words, you know,
Yeah.
it's taken from the scripture.
So you can't argue with it.
Yeah, there is no argument against
Yeah.
it, like unless someone wants to argue against the scripture itself, which if
Wow.
someone is religious, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about that.
Amazing. So when is that?
Right now we're working on a translation.
Okay.
So that we want to try to, when we launch it, that it's available in both English and Arabic at the same time.
Nice.
And then we will work on translating to other languages, but that will be after it's launched.
And is that just available for download?
So it will be on our website, MiddleEastVeganSociety.org. There will be a specific part called Vegan Islam, and then there's several pages within the research. And then there will also be flyers, like a summary type of flyers that people can download, and then they can use it in Activism. And it will have a QR code. If someone's interested, they can scan it and read more about it. Because the flyer is going to be very little information, but the basic stuff.
Cool.
But the website itself will have a lot of information.
That's really cool that you're organizing this. I think it's going to be really impactful.
I'm excited,
Yeah, amazing. So to end it, do you have one message to share to all the people who are listening? It can be about anything. Even either people who are vegan aspiring or just vegan advocates out there. A final advice.
Message. I would say, read some books on animal rights as a philosophy.
Yeah.
Both for vegans and non-vegans, because once you understand the philosophy, if you want to be honest with yourself, you will go vegan, and if you're already vegan, you will have very good talking points, which will make your life much easier.
Nice. Yeah. We need that. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the episode, and thank you to everyone who was listening to us, and I hope this was helpful, and hope we can spread the vegan message further in very effective ways.
Perfect.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into the Changemakers podcast. My name is farahamberh, and I hope that you enjoyed the episode. If you did, it would really mean the world to me if you could rate the podcast, and also remember to follow the podcast to stay updated on new episodes. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.